All right, and now here is the second part. Last time we talked, we were discussing Quattro, so let's take it from there. Um, One thing I definitely want to talk about in this conversation, and this album is a great example of this, is I wanted to talk about how you guys come about picking the songs, not only for the record, but more specifically, how do you pick the songs as far as song order and pacing of an album?
That's a pretty interesting question because I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. You don't just take your songs and throw them on there. You know, you got to put yourself in like a fan's position and be like, well, you know, what's gonna lead this thing off and gonna capture people's attention. You know, the first tune. You know, what's really gonna get people pumped up. You always want to have something, a dramatic song or a high energy song first, and maybe even another one second, and then kind of bring them back down. You make it like a roller coaster, you know. You do the ups and downs, and then through the record, you don't want to have two like ballads right next to each other. But then, towards the end of the arrangement of the songs on the record, last song you want to leave them with something that just kicks their fucking ass, you know. We really experimented and did some different stuff on that. We wrote our first song, which was kind of, I thought was an alternative type thing. It wasn't a ballad, it wasn't really a metal song, but it was heavy. Wading Through the Darkness was the name of that. We ended up had a lot of label interest from that because they really pushed that song, and because it was more of a mainstream rock song instead of categorized thrash tune, I guess you could say. And our band was, I don't think you could really consider us for that record a thrash record,
Right.
Maybe going back more towards, there's so many different categories of metal these days, it's ridiculous, but I mean, it's still metal, but maybe you want to put a label on it, maybe it's going to be speed metal, still along the Megadeth speed metal type shit.
So, Wading Through the Darkness was the first song you guys wrote for that album?
No, it wasn't. Oh. I can't remember if it was the first song that we wrote. It was the first, experimental, I wanted to call it, kind of in an alternative direction because of the chord structures of it and stuff like that. It, just at the time, it just wasn't what metal bands were doing, So, it's just an experiment for us that I thought turned out really well. It was a good song. And I think that was when we started really realizing that it doesn't matter if it's a metal song or if it's a rock song. If you've got a good song, put it on the fucking record, because a good song is it's just a good song, dude. So, that makes sense to you?
Well, no, yeah, it definitely does, especially as a songwriter. I'll be honest, my only exception to this album came in the pacing of the record, because everything that I just said, the album starts out really high and then, for a bit there, slows it down quite a bit for, quite a few songs in a row. I mean, you were saying earlier about two ballads in a row, yeah, you guys don't have two ballads in a row, but Cradle Me Now and Wading Through the Darkness, that's pretty close, But then as you guys do Never to Reveal, and you got another, mid-tempo, really catchy song, and Forget About Heaven, that's a really good one, and then you have the groovy Secret Square with a lot of experimentation in that song, that's very interesting verses you got. But then after that, you got almost three fast songs in a row. I found that to be very odd then. I was like, I really like this record, but there's a lot of people that might have not been, say, I don't know, huge fans of the band prior to that. Let's say a casual Flotsam and Jetsam fan might have not even made it as far as those last few songs because maybe they might have been put off by the slower pace in the middle of the record. So can you talk a little bit about that? How did you guys wind up with so many fast songs at the end of the album?
It's a give or take type of thing, people's attention span, and we weren't thinking about this at the time, but right now it's something to be considered about. Right now, people want the quick. They want, they just want the quick result right away.
Right.
Don't bore us, get to the chorus type thing, and it's like that with everything. People's attention span. Maybe get 5 songs into it, and then they got to go do their laundry. They got to go do dishes. They have to go to work. So really, we try to keep the ones that are going to be the most interesting or think that are going to be, the power songs on the record. You want to keep those before, the mid mark or the 3/4 mark of the record, because you want people to hear those. Even though I always think it's kind of cool to keep like a track in there, like we did it with "Play Your Part" on this newest record. It's probably the strongest song on the record, and it's seated someplace right smack in the middle of the record. Which is, hopefully people will like the songs as they're getting through it, but then when they get to that one, they really like that one. So, and hopefully that, even with Quattro, hopefully when they get towards that 3/4 point, they get their second win. They go, oh, fuck yeah, here's these now, But in reality, probably not going to work like that with people's attention span and how much good music there is out there and all the shit that people have going on. They don't have time to sit down and listen to 70 minutes of a record.
Yeah, today with all the, all the people pretty much getting their music, from MP3s and getting songs here and there, like the importance of a full album isn't necessarily what it used to be,
No, that's true.
And that's unfortunate, because that, to me, that's the conversation I'm having with you right now, the idea of the art form of putting together an album. I'm just still very much into that, the idea of crafting an album kind of like a director crafts a movie, Actually, that analogy to me is the way to go. I happen to also work in the movie industry, so I guess that's probably where I get it from. But yeah, the idea of the pacing of a movie, it's like you have 3 acts, and certain types of things have to happen at the end of each act to keep the level of interest all the way through. And I think that albums are very much like that, and should be like that, But
that's with the next record that came up afterwards, Drift. It's the same way. It's put together the same way. It's got the big one at the beginning, the big fast one to get people's attention, and it's like a roller coaster type thing. You got to try to keep them on their toes, so they don't know what they're getting next.
That's exactly how I look at it. The roller coaster is the same thing. You got ups and downs, and on an album and on a live set, that's the thing. I'm just a huge believer in that. And hey, realistically speaking, like you said, people's attention spans, they are what they are. You got the kind of people that want the deeper stuff and don't mind, the more introspective type tunes, and then you got the ones that need that quick excitement. And at the end of the day, hey, being realistic, you are playing metal, so it's about the energy, and people, it's still the number one thing they crave when they go buy a record or when they go to a show. So that up and down kind of thing, it turns out to be very important, so you can keep people all the way through.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. So then how about song selection? This album here, not only did it have 12 tracks, it was pretty lengthy, and definitely the most tracks you guys had up to that point on an album, but there's also a few tracks that didn't make it on the record. They were pretty cool that I like to talk about. So tell me about song selection for the records.
We kind of left that up to some outer sources this time, We had so many songs, and it's just, once you're in it, you're writing these things, you're listening to them, you hear them, you recorded them, you're just like, you almost don't have a perception of what's going on with them anymore. So, but if you take a step back and maybe let some outside people listen to it, so some people you trust, and you kind of give it to them and say, which ones are the strong ones or whatever, and then you kind of mull it around, and what we came up with is let's put these songs on the record, and then let's do some B-sides, because at that time B-sides were really popular too. You put out like Wading Through the Darkness, and then you throw out Fairies Wear Boots, on the other side of that, or there was all kinds of different options for us. The record labels wanted us to do that too. So that's kind of a pretty cool little factor. But if you have too many songs, it goes back to the attention span too.
Right.
12 songs on a record is a lot of songs. Unless you're Van Halen, and you can put 12 songs on a record, and it's only 30 minutes long.
Right, right. So then, so tell me about Date with Hate. I absolutely love that track.
That's one of those songs that happened in a day. You know, we're done with it because it just flowed. It sounded like all the parts worked for us, and you know, it's just one of those that writes itself. Stuff for the masses was the same way.
Right.
What? Most of them end up like that, actually.
What about News to Me? Was that recorded during that same time period?
Yeah, all those were. All those were the same thing. I thought that was probably one of the weaker ones. That you know, that some of the record label people kind of liked it, and I didn't. I was like, okay, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you feel about that. All right. Cool. So that's a song that didn't come to my attention until many years later. I mean, I knew about Date with Hay because it was a B-side to I don't remember what, Swatting at Flies maybe, or yeah, I think it was Swatting at Flies, or something from the Quattro Days. And when I heard it then, I was like,
Swatting at Flies would have been a huge song if it would have came out probably 2 years later. And the record labels would have pushed that one. If MCA would have pushed that song, it would have been that would have been the big one instead of Wading Through the Darkness. What was going on? Understand that? I mean, yeah.
What makes you say that? Like, what makes you say what makes you feel that it would be bigger later and not in 1992 or 93 when that single came out?
Because of the way the song's structured. There's no. It starts at a certain pace, and it maintains that pace the whole way through the whole tune, and it ends. It's got it doesn't stop, and it keeps that. It's like hindsight's 2020 type of thing. You look back and you think about if you're at a show, if you're at a concert, and you've done this before because you play. Have you ever jumped? While you're playing, and then you watch the people in the front row, they all jump at the same time as you, right? So that song is a jump song. Like, you can listen to it, and you can jump to it. If people can jump to it, they can move to it. If they can move to it, they want it to keep going, If that song was to, you can jump to it for the first two verses, and all of a sudden it changes the tempo, and you lose people right there. The structure-wise, you can't do that. It's like pulling the carpet out from somebody. They're listening to it, and all of a sudden, they hit a wall. But that song goes straight through. You can jump to it, or you can move to it the whole way through. And I think that is key right now with people in a live show. When I talk to you about going back and listening to these bands, that kind of stuff, it's great. There's a lot of high energy, but if you got that going on and it stops, and it goes again, and it stops, and it goes again, and it's real choppy, you can't grasp it. It's time to get a hot dog, dude. Swatting the Flies is not a hot dog song. You don't want to go get a hot dog because you want to jump.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean jump like really jump, but I mean you want to move to it, you want to bob your head to it.
Yeah, you're gonna headbang, absolutely, and it really does have that driving. It's what I would call that driving feel, just constantly driving forward and rocking the faces of whoever's hanging out. It always does work live. It worked on the record, and it does have that feel. I'm with you. And actually, the thing about it is, so does Date with Hate. That's very much that got that driving forward, vibe to it.
We got a lot of flack from the record label on that one though, because it's a little violent.
Yeah. No, the lyrics are, like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory, but hey, again, it was metal, and damn, that's the kind of lyrics people like to hear when they're banging their head to something.
Yeah.
You did bring up something interesting though, the comparison to Enter Sandman. On that verse riff, you do something very similar to that, and at the time, I caught on to that, and a few people mentioned that to me. Then, people caught on to that, So how do you feel about that? Like, how does that? Did you know that then when you wrote it? Did you know it after you recorded? Like, did you, like?
For Swatting?
Yeah, for Swatting at Flies, yeah.
No, I wrote that song just as, like, I just thought it was cool. I thought it sounded cool. It was one of those 15-minute ones that, we wrote it in 15 minutes, and I was like, okay, cool. But now that I look back on stuff and I listen to some of the old stuff that when I do a record, I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm done. Like, I listen to it after it's been mastered, and you tour, you hear it 50 million times. I don't want to hear it anymore. But when I go back to it now and I listen, because before we made Ugly Noise, I went back and I listened to everything.
Right.
And I said, I don't want to make the same mistakes that we've been making. I want to move forward with things. So what can I do, structure-wise? And same thing came to mind every time, that the song's got to start and it's got to maintain its beat. It's got to maintain that drive factor, and it's got to get, it's like a triangle almost. You're going up a hill, and then boom, at the end of the song, it just drops you off, and then it takes you back to the beginning again. You want to hear the beginning, so you're going. It's like a triangle that's laying on its side. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That makes sense to you?
Absolutely.
And that's the structure of the songs for me. And if there's anything that is real choppy, I think that's a hot dog point.
You should put that on a shirt. That's awesome.
It's such a great analogy, because that's really what I do. If I go to a show and I lose interest for a song or something, I go get a hot dog.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Cool, man. So, Quattro, yeah, awesome. An album that very much, injected new life into the band, and kept you guys going through now what was going to turn out to be a difficult time period for metal bands, and that's the 90s, the mid 90s specifically. Which brings us to Drift. That was
the same. You know what? It's the same template as Quattro. Same record label and everything. Same band. All the same artist relation people. We worked with the same people on it and did the exact same thing. We just reproduced, basically Quattro with Drift. And at the time, I thought that was a great record. We got into some different stuff, songwriting-wise, too. We tried to incorporate more melodies in it, but, like I said, it's still the same template for the songs, the structure, and stuff like that.
But the thing is, I guess, from a fan standpoint, there are differences. I mean, you're right. As far as production goes, that's probably the best one. Like, that production was tight as hell. Everything, all the tones sounded amazing. Eric's vocals were, top of the game. I think, as a lyricist, he'd really absolutely gotten, full tilt on that. And then, the vocal performance, same thing. That was the best thing about that album. It's just front center kind of thing. Like I said, good tones. And while I do understand as far as, like arrangement wise and, the general flow of the songs, themselves, yeah, it's very much, taking Quattro, to the next logical step. But as an album, it probably doesn't have the same roller coaster kind of vibe, because you don't have as much up-tempo activity. But a lot of bands didn't at that time period. Again, it's a sign of the times. That's just, it wasn't surprising then. I think if new fans, if kids are going back through your catalog now, getting into it, they probably wouldn't really understand that album, at all. While, if you're like me and you lived it, those were interesting times where a lot of bands were experimenting with new things, anything to, keep it going,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, that record just kind of has that, some of the songs later on that record, took me a while to took them a while to grow on me. But there's just some great hooks in there, too, you got songs like Blindside, and I happen to be very particular to Missing. It's a really good acoustic song, great melody. 12-Year-Old with a Gun was pretty classic in that, swatting at flies kind of headbanging vibe,
Yeah.
I really like that one. I think Drift was a difficult record for me. At first, it took me quite a few listens to really get around to it. Again, the talent of the songwriting and the performance just won me over, because those songs just, they speak for themselves, man. And yeah, that production is undeniable. It's a very good album. If you know, it kind of stands out in your catalog, you know, it's still very good. What about okay, so now comes something I really want to talk about, because this gets talked about a lot less, and that is the next record, High. So this still featured the same lineup as Drift. This is correct, right?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yes, still the same lineup, but I was checking out at that point.
Right.
And didn't have a whole lot to do with that record. I wrote a couple tunes on it, but then I that's when I bailed. So anything from that record up until Ugly Noise, I'm definitely not the right guy to interview about that, because it's just not my shit, you know.
Right. But that's why I specifically want to talk about just that album, because that, you know, you guys are on the credits, you know, your pictures are in there, you know, but you guys were gone pretty much immediately. So I specifically want to know, you know, what your involvement was there. Like, what was your thought process? You know, you say you're checking out, so what was that like for you?
I was checking out for a number of reasons. For, you know, we didn't have control of the band at the time, dude. You know, and I'm a firm believer, like, it's a circle of the people that are playing in the band. You know, you let certain people into it, but you don't let control factors come to play, you know? I mean, and there was some outside control factors that I just could not deal with, and it's like there's no fucking way that I'm gonna do that. You know, let an outside person come in and you know, start designating things and spitting out orders and shit like that.
But is this management, or is this a label? Because by this point you guys were on.
No, it wasn't a label.
Okay,
it wasn't a label at the time. It was just an outside person that weaseled his way into it.
Okay.
And that's enough. That's enough of that. You know, I mean, you could probably figure out from what I just said who that is.
That's fine. I got you.
And then also the name of the record. I wasn't a big fan of that, and I didn't really have anything to do with it. And I thought that was not the wisest thing. I think the presentation of it was very minor league. You know, you have all these different song titles from, you know, with using different band logos.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought that was fucking cheesy as fuck.
You didn't like that, huh?
And when you don't have, yeah, and I was like, nope. I'm not doing this. You know, someone else is in control of this. Goodbye. So I fucking bailed.
What songs did you write on that? Do you know?
What's the name of it? It's like the third song on there.
It's On Me.
Hallucinational.
That's the second song. Yeah, that's a cool song.
Yeah, that was really the only part that I played in that record.
Did the you know, the thing about it is that, you know, the new album is pretty much, you know, it sounds to me like it's, you know, taken off right from where that one left off, because, see, I happen to be very particular to that album, you know, because it was kind of like, you know, as good as Drift was as an album, you know, from a songwriting standpoint, you know, it didn't have the same type of, you know, metal, ass-kicking vibe that at the end of the day, that's, you know, one of the things that drove me to FLOTSAM and JETSAM from day one, you know, that ass kicking.
Ugly Noise doesn't have it, or
no, I'm talking about Drift. I'm talking about High. You know, it Drift didn't have it, but High kind of started getting back into that. You know, kicking things back up a bit, especially the song It's on Me. I mean, that song kicks ass. And there's a few others in there that there's some really good hooks in there too. You know, you got songs like Monster and High Noon.
Oh yeah.
You know, they were really cool. And what is it? What's that one? Lucky Day. There's actually many moments on the new record that remind me of that song specifically. That that mid-tempo headbanging kind of riff. You know, with the really killer verse. Yeah, it's a really cool song. In general, it's an album that I've had all kinds of questions about just due to that. I listened to it. It did kind of sound like maybe the whole band wasn't fully involved in the writing, but it still was, pretty well crafted, as far as the hooks and the pacing of the record. And, I wasn't even too sure. I listened to it sometimes, and I'm not even too sure if you're even playing as many solos on that. I wondered if maybe Ed did most of the guitar playing. Like, there's a few times I've listened to that album through the, over a decade now, that I've wondered this, if maybe you were even recording on it.
Well, it kind of depends. It's really weird. A few of the records, I've done all the rhythms just to keep the tightness going on.
Right.
And he's done the same thing. That was one of the records that he did most of the rhythms and stuff like that. I came in and played. I probably played 30% of them, and then I come in and do solos. I mean, they're just it's just kind of what's working sound wise, and it just does. It's the best thing for the song in the studio. That's what you're really going for.
You guys, through the years that you and Ed played together, I mean, you guys are, there are similarities, at least in the rhythm playing, but then there are noticeable differences if you have the ear for it, and there was just things about it.
So, I mean, no matter what, everybody's got a track on the record, because that's how the band is.
Right.
That is the band. So it just depends on how it's panned and how the production comes through. You end up doing a ton of guitar tracks, and then you might not use some of them. You might use all of them. You just never know.
Right.
It's by the time the mix comes around, it's better to have everything. Too much stuff than there is not enough. I think that's kind of one of my production standpoints.
Oh, well, it makes sense. I mean, that's like the point of, tracking things a few times. You do go back, you can listen to it later with fresh ears and then pick the best thing you got, So, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so then I saw an interview that you gave, a little while ago when you were talking about Ugly Noise, and you were like, oh, so we're, this album takes it where Drift left off, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, but what about High? I mean, I understand that, you didn't play on the other records at all. I can understand that you guys, this lineup getting back together, all right, it's, you're taking it from where you last left off, but to leave High out, I don't know. There's quite a few of us that are still very particular to that album.
Yeah, I understand that. My main thing on the road this time, I love talking about the old stuff too, but, what's happening now is, we've been revived with this new record, and I think it's been out like underground, and it's not been released yet, but it's been downloaded. There's a lot of people that have heard it.
Right.
I think the last I checked, there was over 20,000 illegal downloads on the thing, which you can't help it. But at least that's some form of publicity. And so far, I've only heard one negative thing about it, and I think it's just I've heard a lot of people saying I've had to listen to it 2 or 3 times to finally get it. Now it's my favorite fucking record. It might have been one of those cases. Who knows? Maybe it's someone that absolutely just hated it, but they still listen to it, and I have to say thanks for that.
Right.
I still took the time to review it, but the guy was a real douchebag about the review. If you don't like it, then say you don't like it. You don't have to fucking just be a dick.
Yeah. No, you don't. You really don't. I mean, again, it goes back to the movies thing. I fucking hate reading reviews on movies and then some douche gives it 0 stars. How the fuck do you give somebody's work 0 stars? Somebody worked on that. Even if they were talentless fucking hacks, they still worked on it. That deserves at least 1 star, because 1 star still means it's bad, but it acknowledges the work.
Yeah, true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, 1 star is a bad review. How the fuck do you feel the necessity to give it less than that?
Every other review we've had has been. We got one from the very first review that we did, or that we had done, was Rock Tribute magazine in Belgium, and I spoke to the guy. I did an interview with him, and he asked, hey, send it to me so I can review it. And he comes back with 90 out of 100 and said it's still our best record yet, And to hear the Europeans thinking like that, I mean, that's pretty cool for us. You know, I know it usually takes in North America a little bit longer to catch on to music. They're just not as into it as the Europeans, but you know, we've just got nothing but positive stuff going on with the record. Now we're back out there, and yeah, it's ballsy to play those songs right at the beginning of the set, but that record's coming out, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I picked it up, a week ago at the show, and I've had a week to sit with it. I've listened to it now probably about, I don't know, in its entirety probably about 5 times. I've been able to really listen to it, and like you said, this other person was saying. I mean, it is the kind of album that takes a couple listens, but you know what? So was Quattro, and I think that's a classic. This album here, the title track's really good. Like you said earlier, Play Your Part is probably the best song on that. You were definitely nailing that. It's a great song, great melody. And it probably has the most complex arrangement too, because after the solos, you go into a whole section of the song that wasn't there before. It's probably one of the only songs that does that moves into an entirely different section post, solo or halfway or whatever.
Everything on Ugly Noise has been very simplified, and there's a reason for that too. Because I told you a little while ago that I went back and I listened to all of our previous stuff before I did Ugly Noise. And one of the things that I thought was possibly a hang-up was we were all walking on each other as musicians, like we're playing these fucking intricate guitar parts while AK's singing, and it's like, it's rubbing the wrong way on some shit, I can't give you an example, but I mean, it happened a lot. So I'm listening to that going, why do we got to do that? We're already established musicians. Who fucking cares if I can play a fucking Ingve solo or not? Who cares if Eric can sing like Jeff Tate or not? Let's put a song together and write the song and give the song what it needs. If it needs a Jeff Tate part or an Ingve part, let's put it in there. But if it doesn't, let's just give it what it needs. There's no reason for me to be doing, or for Kelly to be doing a drum fill over a guitar solo. That's retarded. So, structurally, everything is very, very simplified for Ugly Noise. I mean, it breathes. Every song breathes, and it's, there's a reason for every drum fill. There's a reason for every guitar. There's some songs that don't even have guitar solos in there. They don't need them. We've got a lot of complaints about that. It's a great record, but where's the guitar solos in this song or in that song? It doesn't need it, man. And plus, trying to keep, you're trying to keep songs for around 4 minutes. Just that attention span thing. People, I don't know if they really want to hear, a 9-minute epic Doomsday for the Deceiver anymore. If they want to hear it, come to our show. We'll play it. How about that?
Well, I think that because, if the internet age, has brought any good things, it's definitely been this, it's made it so a lot of things have become timeless. If a 17-year-old kid is getting into metal and picking up all this shit, to them, there's no difference if it came out in 1982 or it came out in 1992. To them, it's came out before. And to them it's music. So when they're listening to epics or whatever, they're not particularly thinking about anything but the fact that they maybe like the epics. I mean, there's many bands out there doing that today that, are finding all kinds of success, So it really just comes down to whether you want to do it or not. I mean, as a musician, as a songwriter, and as an artist, if that's what you want to be playing, cool. You're right. If people don't want to hear simplified songs from you, I guess they can just bust out Doomsday and put that in and listen to the song Doomsday for a Deceiver or Metal Shock or something, long as shit, and they can dig it. The new album, it definitely is to the point. All the songs are to the point. Like I said, Play Your Part is probably the most, has the most going on arrangement wise, maybe. I don't know about guitar solos though. I mean, every song pretty much has guitar solos. And there is quite a bit of shredding, especially near the end on the 2 more up-tempo songs. That there's actually quite a bit of shredding on those last 2 songs. Yeah, drum fill. I can see that. You know, there's less drum fills on this album. Like in general, the you know, from verse to chorus, verse to pre-chorus, whatever. There's less transitional stuff. That's usually the kind of places where I look for fills. Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Drum fills over guitar solos is fucking ridiculous. I mean, there's just way too much going on. That's defeating the purpose, actually. You know. But yeah, I mean, drum fills.
Cancel each other out. It's like,
Right,
what
right.
the fuck is that?
Right, that's exactly it. I mean, you know, to me, drum fills their point. Even drum fills that, like, you know, sometimes you got drummers that play like 4 drum fills in the middle of a verse. Again, it's like, what the fuck is that? Do we have a verse here? We have something that's being said by the vocals here. We don't need drums throwing in fucking fills every 2 bars.
Yeah, walking on it.
Right, same
Just
thing.
walking on the finger, you know.
Right. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of that. But as a transitional tool to transition, say, a verse into a pre-chorus or a pre-chorus into a chorus, that's where they come in.
Feel it.
Right. This album is a little light on that. You know, now that I've listened to it a few times, like, let's say the fourth or fifth time I was listening to it, that's when I caught on to that a little more. I was like, because even on Kelly's last record, High, you know, there's some fucking king drum fills in there. This album's a little light on that, but again, is an inclusion of a drum fill important to whether a song is good or not? I don't fucking think so. You know, it never has been, and it never will. You know,
it's like I said, we're trying to just give it what it needs.
You know, I can relate with the idea of, as a fan, you know, you go and you grab an album, whether you paid for it or not, but I guess specifically if you paid for it, you go and you buy a record, you come home. There's still I gotta say those necessary ingredients that that a fan feels that they need to receive out of that, you know, purchase, out of that, you know, time, you know, that what I would call the commitment, you know, that commitment that the fan has made. You know, they grab your record, they want to sit down. There's a few things that they want to hear, and I guess if you did make a career of, you know, whatever it was, playing 3-hour-long solos or, you know, virtuoso vocalizing or fucking, you know, 3 hours, whatever it is that person's perception is of your sound. I guess when they do buy it and then they get something entirely different, I can understand the initial disappointment. Drift was like that for me. You know, at first I was like, oh fuck, you know, where is the never to reveal kind of thing. You know, it's not like I was expecting it to be No Place for Disgrace, but, you know, you kind of can't help but to compare it at least to the previous album, you know, so you get into that. But again, once you get into repeated listenings, and you do wind up appreciating something for what it is, not what you wish it was. And I think this record is very much exactly that. To be honest, there really isn't, you know, a shit tune on there. You know, there's probably a couple songs in there, you know, you probably like more than others, but it's a pretty straightforward album.
Yeah, we try to make them a zero hot dog song record.
Cool, man. So I appreciate your time. This has been very cool.
Yeah, dude, I totally appreciate you taking the time, and you asked some good questions, man.
Hell yeah, dude. So we'll stay in touch, dude. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the time that you put into this. This is probably the longest interview you've given in your entire fucking life.
Good one, though, man. So it's cool.
Hell yeah,
Mike,
man.
you take care, dude. I'll talk to you soon, man. I'll keep you posted on the video stuff, and, you know, if you have anything else you want to ask me or whatever, dude, feel free to call me, man. You got my number.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot. Have a good tour.
Cool. Oh, thanks, dude. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.